I met Mark on a chilly autumn afternoon. Our love wasn't fiery or dramatic, but it was peaceful and deeply rooted. Over the course of 3 years, we had been through countless hardships together, building a future that felt full of hope. Both of our families supported the relationship, and the wedding date had already been set. The little house we'd saved every penny to buy became our very first home. We were so excited, picking out everything from a cozy bed to the wooden dining table that Mark had so carefully chosen. Every night we'd sit together and talk about our dreams plans for the future. The perfect wedding rings had already been prepared, and we even set aside a room for our future child. Our plan after the wedding was to stabilize our finances and try for a baby a year later. We truly believed that together, we could build a happy family. A home filled with laughter and love. But there was one thing that kept troubling me. Right before the wedding, Mark and I decided to visit a fortune teller to choose an auspicious date. I had always believed in spiritual signs and omens, but Mark didn't. When we stepped into the fortune teller's dimly lit room, the flickering oil lamp cast eerie shadows, and the air grew heavy with tension. The old man stared at us in silence for a long time, then suddenly sighed. His voice dropped low as he spoke slowly. "The two of you were never meant to be. If you go through with this, one of you will be lost forever. One will live, the other will die." His words chilled me to the bone. My heart pounded violently, and I squeezed Mark's hand tightly, afraid that if I let go, he might disappear right before my eyes. I turned to him, searching for a reaction, but Mark just smiled gently, patted my head and said, "Why believe in stuff like that? We love each other. Everything's going to be just fine." His smile should have comforted me, but the unease wouldn't go away. The fortune teller's voice echoed in my mind like a curse I couldn't erase. That night I lay awake in bed, tossing and turning as a vague anxiety crept over me. I turned to look at Mark beside me. He was sound asleep, his face so peaceful as if nothing in the world could disturb him. The next morning I told him about the strange dream I had. In the dream I found myself standing in a dark forest, surrounded by blurry shadows. Suddenly, a cold, lifeless hand grabbed me and whispered something into my ear, but I couldn't make out the words. When I turned around, I saw Mark in the distance, and a dark figure loomed over him, as if trying to take him away. I tried to run to him, but my legs felt like they were made of lead. I couldn't move. I screamed his name, but he didn't hear me. When I finished telling him the dream, Mark just laughed and pulled me into his arms. "You're just overthinking. We've planned everything so well. Don't let silly things like this get in your head." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that our love was strong enough to overcome anything. I pushed the fear aside and focused on planning the wedding. But what I didn't know was that the fortune teller's warning wasn't just meaningless words. It was a sign, a foreshadowing of a devastating tragedy that was about to unfold. That night, Mark texted me, "My love, let me enjoy tonight just a little longer. Starting tomorrow, I'll be the best husband for you." It was a simple message, yet it filled me with a deep sense of unease. I didn't understand why I felt that way. All I knew was that my heart felt restless, tangled in anxiety I couldn't shake. I replied, "Please be careful, okay? I'm really scared." But there was no response. Not immediately. I glanced at the clock. The minute hand inched forward slowly, painfully. My heart felt like it was burning. A sense of nausea twisted in my stomach. I kept checking my phone again and again, but there was no call, no text from Mark. I decided to call him, but no one answered. All I heard was the cold, hollow ringing on the other end. The feeling of dread grew stronger. I sent another message. "Please come home soon. Tomorrow's our wedding. Day, I'm really worried." But all I received in return was silence. A terrifying, heavy silence. The wind outside howled fiercely. Tree branches scraped against the window, creating eerie creaking sounds like something from a nightmare. My mind began imagining the worst. Had something happened to him? Or was he just out having fun and forgot that I was here, waiting? I tried to calm myself down, tried to breathe. But the fear was still there, creeping in like a shadow I couldn't push away. The clock struck 11 p.m. The room was pitch black, with only the dim light of my phone screen glowing faintly. I leaned back in my chair, exhausted, eyes glued to the screen, praying for a message from Mark. Suddenly, the silence was shattered by the shrill ring of my phone. My heart jumped. I grabbed the phone quickly, my hands trembling. It was Mark's father. My fingers shook as I answered the call. "Sweetheart, I need you to stay calm and listen." His voice cracked. Then came a pause. A silence so long it felt like time had stopped. My chest tightened. Each breath felt heavier than the last. It was that kind of silence. The one right before a storm hits. "Mark, he was in an accident. He's gone, honey. He's gone." I froze. The phone slipped from my hand and crashed to the floor. My vision blurred. The room spun. All I could hear was that one sentence echoing in my head over and over again. No. No. That can't be true. He had just texted me. Just moments ago. How could he be? How could he leave me like this? The night before our wedding. I rushed out into the night, the freezing rain slapping against my skin. I didn't care. I reached Mark's house. His parents were already there, sobbing uncontrollably. The air was thick with grief, suffocating. Mark lay still, motionless. I walked toward him slowly, as if my body wasn't mine. I reached out and touched his hand, the hand I had held so many times, now cold, lifeless. I broke down, collapsing beside him. My cries shattered the silence. "You told me you'd be with me forever. You promised me, Mark. Why are you lying here? Get up, please. Say something." But he didn't. There was only silence. His silence more painful than anything I had ever known. The pain clutched my heart like an invisible hand, squeezing until I couldn't breathe. I wept beside him, lost in agony. Outside, the rain kept falling. Sharp, freezing, like blades cutting into my skin. Mark's mother sobbed in the background, her cries echoing through the house. I couldn't believe it. The man I loved, the man who was supposed to become my husband, was gone. Just like that. In the days that followed, I felt like I was drowning in grief. His funeral was quiet, muted, grey. I stood beside his coffin, unable to accept what was happening. Memories flooded back. His smile, his laugh, the warmth of his arms. Now, only distant echoes. It felt like my heart had died with him. After the funeral, I returned to our little home. Everything was still the same, as if he'd just stepped out for a moment. His shirt was still draped over the chair, his shoes neatly placed by the door. The scent of him still lingered in the sheets. But he was no longer there, and he never would be again. I walked into the room where we had prepared for our new life together. The wedding dress I never got to wear still hung untouched. The rings we picked out sat quietly in a red velvet box. I collapsed, sobbing, hugging the white dress I once dreamed of wearing. Now, I was alone, left behind with nothing but grief. No words could ever describe that pain. I blamed myself. I blamed fate. I blamed everything. If only I'd begged him not to go that night. Would he still be alive? If I'd truly believed the fortune teller's warning. Could we have avoided this tragedy? Those questions haunted me, day and night, unanswered. I sat in the corner of the room, staring out into the night. The rain still fell, like tears from the sky mourning Mark's departure. I thought this was the deepest sorrow a person could ever feel. But I didn't know. The darkest days were still ahead. In the days following the funeral, I lived in a state of grief and haunting I couldn't escape. Every night, I dreamt of Mark, but those dreams were no longer the warm memories they used to be. Instead, they were cold, dark. In my dreams, Mark would stand there, his eyes hollow, filled with pain. He looked at me as if he wanted to say something, but no words ever came out. I'd call his name over and over, but he would slowly fade into the darkness, like smoke slipping through my fingers. One night I was curled up alone in our now empty home when I suddenly heard the softest footsteps. At first I thought I imagined it, but the sound grew clearer, echoing down the silent hallway. The footsteps stopped right outside the baby's room, the one we had lovingly prepared together, for a child we never had. My heart pounded in my chest. I jumped up and ran toward the door, my hand trembling as it reached for the handle. The door creaked open slowly, and I saw the faint figure of someone standing inside. That figure stood silently before the empty crib, as if admiring the child we had once dreamed of. Terrified, I began to cry and called out, "Mark, is that you? Mark, have you come back to me?" But no one answered. I stepped forward, but the figure slowly faded into nothingness. Only a chilling silence remained. The room turned ice cold, as if a sudden wave of freezing air had swept through it. I stood there frozen, a fear unlike anything I had ever felt creeping into every corner of my mind. From that night on, I knew something wasn't right. My family grew concerned about me, but I refused to leave the home Mark and I had built together. I truly believed he was still here, lingering, unable to leave me behind. One night, I was sitting in Mark's old office when I felt a sudden cold breeze on the back of my neck. And then I heard it. A chilling whisper. "Don't open the door. They're trying to take me away." I spun around in horror. But the room was still. Empty. Silent. I clutched myself tightly, trembling. Who had spoken? Was it Mark? Or something else? I didn't sleep at all that night. I buried myself under the blankets, eyes wide open, feeling like something, or someone was watching me from the shadows. The next morning, my family came to check on me, fearing I might do something reckless. When they tried to open the curtains to let in some sunlight, I panicked and screamed, "Don't open them! Don't open the curtains! He'll disappear if you do." They looked at me with helpless sorrow in their eyes, but they opened the curtains anyway. The sunlight poured into the room like a tidal wave, and for a moment, I felt like I'd been yanked back into reality. Still, deep inside, I believed Mark hadn't left me. I tried to explain, but no one believed me. They thought grief was driving me into hallucinations. On the 5th night after Mark's death, I sat alone again in his office. The dim light from the desk lamp flickered and reflected in the large mirror he had always loved. I stared at it absently, until my breath caught in my throat. Mark was there, in the reflection. His face was clear but smeared with blood. His eyes looked into mine with unbearable sadness. I burst into tears, reaching out to touch the glass. "Mark, is that really you? Have you come back to me?" He whispered, "I want to have our wedding. That's my last wish. I love you." My heart clenched so tightly, I could barely breathe. I wasn't afraid anymore. If that was what he wanted, I would do it. I would fulfill his final wish. I prepared everything. His photo, a wedding outfit, candles glowing softly in the dark. I believed that if I completed the ritual, he would stay with me. Forever. But I had no idea. I was walking straight into a nightmare. At exactly midnight, the room plunged into darkness. The candles flickered violently, and in the mirror, I saw him. He stepped out slowly, wearing the suit he was supposed to wear on our wedding day. But his face was no longer the Mark I knew. His eyes were pitch black. His mouth twisted unnaturally. A cruel, blood-curdling laugh echoed as blood trickled from a gash on his forehead. "Marry me, and we'll be together forever." His voice wasn't human. It was laced with something dark, possessed. I stood frozen. Every part of me wanted to run, but I couldn't move. I loved Mark. But the thing standing in front of me wasn't him anymore. I backed away, trembling. Suddenly the door behind me slammed shut. I was trapped. Trapped with it. The wind howled through the room. Photos fell from the table. The mirror shook violently. Then the image in the mirror changed. Mark's reflection was gone. In his place stood a stranger. A twisted, hateful face. Deformed. Malicious. He stepped forward, whispering, "Weren't you looking for your husband? Let me help you find him." I screamed and rushed toward the door, fumbling with the lock. But it wouldn't budge. The shadow lunged at me from the mirror. I couldn't scream, couldn't breathe. My body froze as the darkness swallowed me. Then the phone rang, loud, urgent, and I heard a voice, Mark's voice. "Run! Get out of there!" It wasn't the thing in the mirror. It was really him. I don't know how, but somehow Mark saved me from that nightmare, from whatever that thing was. And I know now, somewhere out there, beyond life and death, Mark is still watching over me. That night the room was pitch black, lit only by the flickering glow of candles. I sat in the middle of the floor, Mark's portrait placed gently in front of me. With trembling hands, I took a lock of my hair, cut it, and held it over the flame. Smoke curled into the air, and the acrid smell of burning hair filled my lungs, making it hard to breathe. But I didn't stop. I closed my eyes and whispered his name. "Mark, I've done what you asked. Please come back to me. Let us be together forever." When I opened my eyes, I saw his figure reflected in the mirror. He stood there, eyes gentle, just like he used to be. Tears of joy streamed down my face. But the happiness was fleeting. Suddenly, from within the mirror, a cold, pale hand shot out. It wrapped around my throat, squeezing tightly. I gasped, thrashing in terror, but the invisible force was suffocating me. I looked back at the mirror. It wasn't Mark anymore. The face staring back at me was twisted and drenched in blood, eyes glowing red with hatred. That was not the man I loved. I tried to scream, but my voice was strangled. Only faint gasps escaped. Then, out of nowhere, the shrill ring of the phone pierced through the heavy silence. The grip loosened instantly. I collapsed to the floor, gasping for air. My hands fumbled for the phone. It was my mother. I answered, but I couldn't speak. The world blurred as darkness overcame me. When I awoke, I was horrified by what I saw. The entire room was filled with candles, arranged like a real wedding ceremony. I sat up in shock, completely disoriented. I stood and rushed to the room with the mirror. Something in me knew Mark was trying to send me a message. But when I looked into the mirror, I froze. It wasn't Mark. It was that same blood-covered man from before. He stood motionless, lips curled into a grotesque smile. I backed away, heart pounding wildly in my chest. I had to get out. Now. I searched for my phone to call someone, but the screen was black, unresponsive. Panicking, I ran to the door, twisting the knob with all my strength. But it wouldn't budge. It was as if something unseen was holding it shut. Then I heard it. That same chilling giggle echoing behind me. I spun around. No one was there, but the sound lingered in the air, bouncing off the walls. I began to shake, cold sweat covering my skin. Then, as if my body no longer belonged to me, my legs began to move, step by step, against my will. I tried to resist, but something was controlling me. My feet carried me to the mirror room. My hand reached out and pushed the door open. A low, growling voice filled the air. "I'll help you follow your husband." The room was pitch dark, except for the trembling, candlelight reflecting off the glass. In the mirror, the man began moving toward me. I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. It was like invisible hands were holding me down. The icy air wrapped around me like a suffocating fog. Then I saw it. My hand slowly lifted, holding a knife. I wanted to throw it away. I wanted to scream. But I had no control. The blade touched my wrist. A deep cut appeared. Blood spilled out in streams. But there was no pain. Only a strange, hollow emptiness. "Follow him. Follow him." The whispers hissed inside my head, circling, relentless. Then the door burst open. My mother and family rushed in, flooding the room with light. The spell broke. I jerked back, the knife clattering to the ground. I stared at my bloody hand, breathing hard. My mother grabbed me, shaking and crying. "What are you doing?" "Oh God, no!" I couldn't speak. I looked back at the mirror. The man was gone. But I knew. He wasn't really gone. He was still there, hiding in the shadows, waiting for the next chance to take me. They pulled me from the room. My body was ice cold, my strength completely drained. If they hadn't come, I would have followed him. That night, I slept in my mother's arms. The nightmare still haunted me, but I finally understood one thing. I couldn't stay in that house any longer. Whatever was there, it wasn't Mark. In the days that followed, I moved back into my mother's home. But the terror from that house followed me. I constantly felt watched, even alone in my room. A fear I couldn't explain wrapped around me like chains. My mother noticed how pale and withdrawn I had become. My eyes vacant, my body fragile. She couldn't bear it anymore. She reached out to an old friend, a woman deeply knowledgeable in the spiritual world. The moment she saw me, the woman's face darkened. Her brows furrowed. She whispered grimly, "This girl is haunted." But it's not just her. Her fiancé was haunted too. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. I clutched my mother's hand, confusion and dread swirling inside me. The woman continued. "The source of all this is something inside the house you lived in. Something cursed." I froze. A cursed object? What did she mean? I started to remember. The day Mark and I first moved into that house. We found it online, an old but sturdy home, with a price too good to pass up. When we visited, we loved it instantly. We bought it without hesitation. At first, everything was fine. We lived there happily for over a year. Laughter, love, and peace filled every corner. But then, Mark brought home that old mirror, the one he hung in his office. That's when things began to change. The woman looked at me, her voice low and firm. "It's the mirror. That's where the curse comes from." My heart dropped. My hands clenched into fists. But it's just a mirror. She shook her head. No, it isn't. That mirror once belonged to another family. The ones who lived in that house before you. She paused, then continued. That family suffered a terrible tragedy. I held my breath. They had a son, a young boy. He took his own life in the bathroom. Her words cut through, my mind like shards of ice. My blood turned cold. Why? I whispered. Why would he do that? She sighed. Because of the curse. I stared at her, my body trembling. The boy, he wasn't just a child. He had been haunted by a vengeful spirit since he was little. He spoke to someone every night, someone no one else could see. He said there was a man in the mirror. A man who claimed to be the true owner of the house. I shuddered. The man in the mirror? His parents didn't believe him. But then, strange things began to happen. He changed. Quiet, vacant, like his soul had drifted away. Until one day, they found him. Dead. In the bathroom. Right in front of that mirror. I hugged myself tightly, trying to stop shaking. After his death, the parents moved out. But before leaving, they had the mirror sealed. A spiritual lock meant to trap the spirit forever. I gasped. But Mark brought it home. The woman nodded slowly, her eyes filled with sorrow. When the mirror was moved, the seal broke. The spirit was released, and it chose your fiancé as the next vessel to continue its unfinished torment. My world spun. Mark? Had he been cursed from the moment he brought that mirror home? Was that why everything fell apart? It manipulated him. It caused his accident. It drove you to the edge. And it isn't done. It wants you to. Tears streamed down my face. Only now did I understand. None of this was random. Every sign, every nightmare, every unexplainable moment. All of it had a reason. Mark wasn't the only victim. That poor boy. The previous owners. They were all caught in the curse. I cried out in anguish. How do I stop it? How do I end this? The woman looked into my eyes, her tone deadly serious. You must break the curse and send the mirror into the river. Immediately. I stood there in silence, but deep down, I wondered if I went back to that house. Would I really be able to escape him? I knew I couldn't run forever. If I wanted to end this once and for all, I had to face my greatest fear. The very next morning, my mother and I went to see her spiritual friend again, seeking guidance. The woman looked at me in silence, then gave a slow nod, as if she already knew what I had come to do. There is only one way to end this, she said calmly. You must break the curse on the mirror, and then release it into the river. My mother tightened, her grip on my hand, eyes full of worry. But I knew I had no other choice. We returned to that house. Once a home filled with love and laughter. Now, nothing but a shell haunted by sorrow and fear. The wooden door creaked as I pushed it open. The silence inside was suffocating. Everything was exactly as we'd left it, untouched, like time had frozen. I took a deep breath and walked to Mark's old office. The mirror was still there, as if nothing had ever happened. But as I stepped closer, a shiver ran down my spine. I placed my hand gently on the glass, closed my eyes and whispered, "Mark, please let go." At exactly 9 a.m., my mother returned to the house to pick up the mirror. She loaded it into a truck and took it to her friend's house for the purification ritual. The next day, she quickly arranged everything according to the instructions she had received. At first, everyone was anxious, afraid something terrible might happen to those who moved the mirror. But strangely, everyone remained unharmed, except for one bizarre thing. Halfway through the trip, the truck's engine suddenly died. No matter what they tried, it wouldn't restart. The truck had been working perfectly before. It was as if something was trying to stop us from taking the mirror away. A chill fell over the group. The air turned icy, unnatural. In that desperate moment, I closed my eyes, placed my hand over my heart, and whispered, "Mark, if you're still here, if you truly want to be free, please help us finish this." No sooner had I spoken than the engine roared back to life, effortlessly, as if nothing had happened. Everyone exchanged stunned glances, then quickly resumed the journey. At the appointed time, we arrived at my mother's friend's house. The mirror was placed on the altar, wrapped in cloth. She unwrapped it carefully, placed it on the table, lit incense, and began to chant prayers. The scent of incense drifted through the room. The air turned still, heavy with something sacred and final. Then she carried the mirror to the riverbank, knelt down, and slowly let it slip into the water, as if releasing years of pain, bitterness, and darkness, as if letting the river carry away every sorrow it had ever known. My mother and I closed our eyes and prayed in silence. I hoped, truly hoped, it was over. Afterward, I went to a temple, dedicating 100 days of service and prayer to offer merit for Mark's soul. The first days were unbearable. Grief still clung to me like a second skin. But slowly, I began to feel peace returning to my heart. No more nightmares. No more cold whispers. No more feeling watched. On the 100th night, I dreamt of Mark. He was just as I remembered. Him, gentle, warm, kind. He stood beneath the tree where we used to meet, looking at me with so much love in his eyes. Tears streamed down my face. I ran to him. "Mark." He smiled and gently brushed a strand of hair from my face. "I'm leaving now," he said softly. "Please, live happily." I sobbed, trying to hold on to him. But my hand only passed through air. He slowly stepped back, a radiant light surrounding him, growing brighter with every step, until he faded away into a silence that felt peaceful. I woke with tears still on my cheeks. But this time, there was no pain. I knew then he was truly gone. I returned to my life, carrying the beautiful memories of Mark in my heart. Before selling the old house, I visited one last time, just to be sure there were no remnants of that cursed mirror. Everything seemed normal. The nightmare was truly behind me. But one thought still haunts me to this day. When Mark brought home that mirror, he had it cut to fit into a display cabinet, which means there's a piece of that mirror still out there, somewhere, and someone might have already found it. Everything has finally come to an end. I've lived through the most terrifying days of my life, facing the unimaginable pain of losing the one I loved most, and confronting invisible forces that haunted my soul. But through it all, I've come to understand one thing. Spiritual warnings are not to be taken lightly. Sometimes what we call superstition may carry terrifying truths. That cursed mirror. It wasn't just an object. It held within it generations of sorrow, hatred, and unresolved pain. I saw with my own eyes how it affected my life, Mark's life, and perhaps the lives of those who had owned it before us. Objects infused with negative energy can seep into people's lives in ways we can never fully comprehend. Though the love between Mark and me was eternal, I've learned that life must go on. I've learned to let go, to face my grief, to search for peace in a heart once broken. Mark is gone forever, but I believe his soul has been set free. The only thing I can do now is live. Live the life we were supposed to have, and cherish every moment of it. Still, one question continues to haunt me. The mirror was cut, a piece of it removed by Mark when he brought it home. What if someone, unknowingly, found that piece? What if the nightmare I survived has only just begun for someone else? Somewhere out there, another life might already be being pulled into the same darkness I once faced. Spiritual mysteries often hide things we can't explain. Do you believe in signs? In curses? If you found this story gripping and chilling, don't forget to leave a like, share, and let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And most importantly, subscribe to our channel so you won't miss the next mysterious tale that might just leave you breathless. Be careful with the old things you bring into your home, because sometimes they carry secrets that should have been left behind. See you again in our next haunting story. Take care and stay safe.